Hello, here we are, Monday again. In I usually say sunny St. George, but it's rainy St. George. The whole last like 6 months. Never seen so much rain. I'm here with my guest, Dave. Dave Reed, my buddy. I think they call him Day Day. Like that's his nickname. Like for real. And he's legit. You got to see him hit that softball. He knocks out the park in the sober softball league. Well, probably in any league. Big dude. But Dave's here to share a little bit of hope and share about his experiences with recovery and tell a little bit about his story. And we're grateful that he came on. He's very well liked in the community, like most guests I have. I'm not ever going to get on here and say this guy's not liked in the community, but yeah, this guy's got a good reputation and a stand-up guy. So I'm just going to turn the time over to you, and I'll butt in when I need it.
Okay.
Just talk about an inch away from 2 inches away from the microphone, pull it up to you, and let it ride.
All right.
Dave?
Yeah, thanks for having me on here, Heston. I really appreciate it, man. I always like to try to share about my experience and about recovery whenever I get the opportunity to. So I guess I'll just start kind of like early childhood and work my way up briefly.
That's the best.
So I have a younger brother and a younger sister. I remember growing up, my mom used my whole childhood. My biological father, I have never met. We moved a lot. I just remember being younger and like always being on the go. I always remember switching schools, always feeling like I was the new person. And that feeling, man, is like when I reflect back on it now, it's like, man, like it's really a shame that I had to go through that, like as a child, you know? And like things just progressively got worse. At one point, I was adopted by another woman. Well, my mom signed her rights over to her. Okay. It was one of her childhood friends. And it kind of was the same situation, just not as bad. My mom did some jail time, and she came back, and I moved back in with her. And it was the same stuff all over again. You know, I was hopeful that things had changed, but they didn't. So I know that I'm grateful for that now in my life, though, like that I went through that, because it made me. It's part of who I am today. My brother was able to move in with his father, and he kind of got out of, you know, what I had to go through. It got to a point where I eventually used with my mom, you know, and it was a way that I think that I felt I could be with her, because like I was so used to her not being there, you know?
Yeah.
And a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old child shouldn't have to feel that way, you know? And I felt close to her at that time. And to me, like at that point in my life, like that was normal. It was like my friends were like, "Oh, your mom's like the cool mom. She lets us
exactly
come and do whatever we want to do. We can go here, go there, do whatever." But now that I can look at it, it's like I was really, really sick, you know. But I am grateful to say today that my mom has almost 10 years clean.
Yeah.
You know, Clap. So yes,
that's awesome.
Love you, Mom.
Yeah.
So yeah, she made a choice, and she changed her life a while ago. So I went through a lot of years, you know, high school years. Started dibbling and dabbling and hanging out with the wrong type of people. You know, the people that I thought that were cool, that I hung out with to try to fill that void that was in me. You know, when I was with them and I did certain things, like I had a sense of, I don't know, power and comfortability in that, and it was just pure chaos, but I felt comfortable there.
Yeah.
You know, I eventually ended up in prison for some time, quite a few times actually, in and out, between prison and rehab facilities, it's almost about 7.5 years of my life that I've spent in either or, and like I look back now and I'm like, man, that's like 25% of my life,
Yeah.
That I won't get back, and then there came a day when I just remember the pain being too great, right? And I didn't know what to do. So I went to, this was my first attempt at, I guess you could say, getting clean, but I wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it because my mom at this point had some time clean, and she was done enabling me. She was like, I'm not, I
She
love
set some
you.
boundaries.
Yeah, she did. She said, I love you, and like, you're my son, but like, I can't do this anymore. So like, I went up to Harrisburg, PA. I did a Salvation Army program there, and I was there for 9 months. And the whole time I was there, nobody could tell me that I couldn't get out and drink. Like, I was like, I know I can't touch this. I can't touch
good
that.
point.
I can't touch any of that. But you can't tell me I can't go and have, a beer if I want to. Like, that's not what my problem is. Like,
Yeah,
I'm okay there.
Yeah, that's not my addiction. I've seen this a million times.
Absolutely. And I graduated that program. I was there 9 months, and when I got out, I thought that I could drink, and that obviously led me to right back to where I was.
Did it lead you back to your drug of choice?
It did.
It does
did.
every time, doesn't it?
It did. And it not only did it lead me back to it, it led me back to it worse.
Yeah.
It didn't get better. It didn't stay the same. It just got worse. After that, I went back and forth. I was in detox a few times, a few different rehabs, and like it still, something in me made me think that like I wasn't an addict, I wasn't addicted to this stuff. It was just, I need to stop for this period of time.
Yeah.
And if I can do that and be clear-headed enough, like I can go out and do what I want and have a grasp on it.
My willpower.
Yeah.
I'm strong enough to be able to say no this
Absolutely.
time.
It's that pride thing, man.
Yeah.
It got me every time. And, sometimes it would be okay for like a month or 2 months. So
It could be okay for 2 years.
yeah. And it, it's like, oh, see, I knew that like I could do this,
Yeah.
and, but it never worked out. Never. A few years later, I met my wife. When we met at the time, we were clean, and that's one of the best days of my life, actually. I caught a lot of crap though, because our oldest child is my daughter. She's not biologically mine, and like her father's in her life today. Like, he's a really good guy.
Yeah, that's great.
And my sponsor at the time was like, Day, like, what are you doing? Like, this woman's pregnant with someone else's kid. And I was like, that doesn't matter to me. Like, something in me, like, I knew. I was like, no, like, this is my woman. Like, we're gonna be married, and like,
and you're gonna love that kid like your own too.
Absolutely.
I got 2 kids I raised for 11 years, and I'm still in their life, and I love them. They're my kids. I call them my kids. I gotta call my grandbaby. That's my first one.
That's
so.
right. Like, anybody asks me how many kids I have, I say I have 3 children.
Yeah.
Isabella's my daughter. She calls me dad as well. She calls her.
And I love the respect you have for her dad too.
He's a great guy, man.
Like me and Tammy, we just tell our kids they have 2 moms and 2 dads. They're lucky.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah, he's a really good guy, man. So yeah, we got married. We had Isabella, and then shortly after, she got pregnant with my son, David Josiah. And
Little Day.
Little Day. He's just like me too, man. I tell you, he's just like me, man. I think he's gonna be a handful when he gets older, but we'll deal with that when it comes.
That's right.
So yeah, we had him, and at this point, I had relapsed a couple times, I think.
He's looking over the wife.
Yeah, my mind.
I want to make sure I'm telling the truth.
I know it was a couple times, and this was after almost having 2 years clean. I had 23 months, and like, I was doing what I needed to do for my recovery. I was going to a 12-step group. I was active in that, and it came to a point where, you know, I pretty much told her to stay home and like I'll work. Like, don't worry about it. Like, I want you to be home with the kids. And it was okay. Like we were talking about for a few months, and but everything stopped. I stopped talking to my support group. You know, I stopped going to the groups that I needed to go to. I stopped leaning on, you know, my higher power, and eventually I picked up. You know, and it was the next year or so was 60 days clean, go back out. It's 30 days clean. And at that point, I think that, you know, it was another pride thing. Like, I didn't want to fully surrender. I didn't want to fully ask for help, you know. And that led to a very bad time in our lives. We both had relapsed at a point, and we had all the kids at this time. So it got pretty bad, you know, and throughout my addiction, I kind of left this out, but I actually OD'd 3 times. I was brought back with Narcan twice. Right.
Good thing they had Narcan around.
Absolutely, I'm grateful for Narcan, man. It really it saved my life twice.
It saves many lives.
Twice.
I love it.
You know, and I remember always asking God, like why, why are you like, why do I deserve to still be here? Like it.
When a lot of your friends had passed, I'm sure,
absolutely.
like me, I was the same way.
Absolutely.
Why me? But now I know why.
Yeah, and you know, I'm grateful that I'm still here, and like I'm still trying to figure out like that higher purpose. Like, why am I still here? Like, I understand, like, you know, I'm taking steps to change my life, and like I try to be the best human that I can be on a daily basis.
And you're giving back.
Absolutely,
that's
you know,
the key.
And yeah, I just try to. Maybe I won't never know the answer to the higher purpose, you know. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
You know, and so after we had both used, I ended up in the hospital. My wife moved out here with my kids to Utah. I was still back in Wilmington, Delaware, and I actually was in the hospital. I was hospitalized for 30 days. I was on IV antibiotics 4 times a day. I had a MRSA infection was in my blood, which it's gotten into my lungs, and I also had pneumonia on top of that. You know, so when the doctors came in, they were like, you know, we don't know, like, if you're even gonna live, you know, and my disease was so strong at that time. It was like, you need to give me something because, like, I'm gonna be sick.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm addicted to a drug, and like, you need to give me something. And they didn't want to give it to me, so I ripped an IV out of my hand, and I said, I'll be back in 2 hours. Like, that's how sick I was.
It is.
After the doctors telling me, if you leave here, like, you could die.
Yeah.
You know, and I came back, and they rushed me back upstairs, and they put me under for a procedure to look into my lungs, because they were like, we're preparing you. We're just letting you know, we're like 99% sure there's probably damage to your heart. Like, we can see the infections in your lungs, but we're not for sure if it's in. So this was one of those times, like, I started praying, man, and, you know, I was just like, you know, God, please just help me get through this, like, walk me through this. And they did the procedure, and there was no damage to my heart. My body, with the antibiotics, was able to get the MRSA out. And I also had contracted hepatitis C while using from being an IV user. And my body naturally fought that off.
Wow.
You know, and to me, like, that just that alone was nothing short of a miracle. I'm like, this doesn't happen every day. You know, like, people don't overdose and live and go through this here. Like, all the, like, it's not
and then be cured of some pretty hard stuff.
I know. And
most people never get over.
I know, man. And it's like, you know, this isn't like a coincidence. Like, this is God in my life, right? And at this time, me and my wife were separated, and you know, we would video, and I could talk to the kids and stuff. And I told her, I said, listen, I don't care what happens, if we're together or not. Like, I'm coming to Utah, I'm gonna be in my kid's life, but I'm letting you know I'm coming to get my family back.
I love that.
Like,
I love it when Gigi came on the show, and that's what I told my wife the other night at the game. She's like, I think she met her husband here. I said, oh no, he's from where they're from. And he, remember, she said he came back and said, I'm here to get my family back.
Yeah, absolutely. I was coming. Nothing was stopping me, man. Not even her.
Yep.
You know,
Right.
not even her. You know, and it's funny because she came out here with couple suitcases for the kids. I came out with a duffel bag. You know, and it was like, you know, people were asking me, are you worried about like going out there, finding work? And I was like, I had been, you know, with my wife and kids for so many years. To have them apart made me lean on my higher power so much. And like I prayed, when I tell you I prayed so much, man, so much. And like I had such comfort from, you know, from God that like everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
You know, and like I moved into an Oxford house. You know, I didn't know anybody in this town. I had a job 2 days later. You know, and like I got a sponsor. I started going to meetings, and like our whole life like just fell right back into place. You know, and it wasn't nothing that I did or that
Right.
she did. You know, it's all a part of the plan, man. And like it just amazes me, like, because a lot of times I forget and I get stuck. You know, and I forget how far like we actually came.
Right.
You know, and I came as an individual. It's like you moved across the country with a duffel bag and like $500,
Right.
you know, and like we're living life today. Like not only are we living life, like we have a great life. We don't have everything we want, but we're happy. Our kids are happy. You know, we're productive members. We love people. We try to help out when we can.
Yeah, I never met more giving people. We were at the games the other night, me and my wife, and we were cold. We were gonna go buy a blanket. Gigi's like, "No, I got some in my car here." You know,
Yeah.
just good heart.
That's my wife.
Doesn't even think of it as service. Just
Yeah.
here, I'm gonna take care of my
It's
people.
just like a normal thing now.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's awesome, man. You know, and you know, we moved here almost 2 years ago, and I actually just had a 2-year anniversary being clean
Yeah.
on the 13th of this month. Thank you.
So cool.
Yeah, so it's like between April and May is really, really cool for our family because it's like my wife's clean date, Mother's Day, my
Yeah.
clean date, my birthday.
Yeah.
You know, so my birthday was just yesterday. You know, so it's like, man, it's like all these great things to celebrate, man. You know, and like when I reached that 2 years, man, because like I've never been clean this long, you know.
Yeah.
And like I'm it's kind of hard for me to express it like out loud, like how grateful I am, but like I'm grateful to be clean. I'm grateful for the people that are in my life, you know.
Yeah.
And through recovery, I can continue to grow. That's one of the beautiful things about it is like I can continue to change myself, right? Nothing in my life is constant but change.
And you can do it sober.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because you got tools.
Yep. And no, regardless, things are going to change. And if I let it go in a negative direction or a positive direction, I feel like is where I have an influence.
Let me ask you this, because I know the answer for me. Dave, does life get easier, or is life easy now that you're 2 years clean?
I would say life is it's easier and it's harder for me. You know,
That's a good answer.
Yeah, so like I know like
We still have problems.
yeah, absolutely.
The reals. I mean, everyone thinks that when we're because we're. I mean, when we're working a good program, we're years sober. We seem pretty happy, but it's because we know how to deal with the problems. We
Yeah.
all have trials.
Oh,
We
absolutely.
still struggle. It's hard to get out of bed sometimes. Still,
Absolutely, man.
but we're sober.
Yeah, and it being in recovery makes dealing with those problems easier, which is why I say it's easier and it's harder, you know, because it's harder still for me because like I don't have what I used for years to cover up those feelings and to not deal with those problems. Like I have to face them,
Yeah,
you know, but the beautiful thing is like I have people I can reach out to.
I was just going to
You
say
know.
that you have a support system.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
You know, and it's really a great thing, man. And like people help us like we help people, and like they don't expect nothing in return.
Yep.
You know, it's a beautiful thing. It's like I never knew people like this existed. You know, and it's really like I always felt like someone would do something with an ulterior motive. Like, what do they want from me?
Right, and that's another hard thing. I mean, I'm 6 years clean, 6 years and a month or something, but I get, and at the first couple of years, I was very, you know what, I'm going to trust people and give them all the benefit of the doubt. And I find myself now going back to my old thinking behaviors of what are they're up to? They're up to something. They're not.
Yeah.
They want something. They're doing this because of this. But it's all in my head, and I got to let that go and just think the best of people, because they're all human. They're gonna mess up, but I hard on people, man,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
gotta stop it.
Yeah, it's hard, man, and like it took me a while to like to get a hold of that. Like you said, even still sometimes I'm like, well, why are you doing this? People will bring us food and stuff, and I'm like, do they want like money back, or like what's going on here? I gotta like show up to their house and cook now, and
Right.
it's not that. It's just every time, and I'll ask a question like, hey, like why'd you do this? And they're like, it helps me way more than it helps you.
Yeah.
And like it's crazy, but like people are out there that are like this is reality, and like there's good people.
Yep.
There really is good people. Man.
There's a lot of good, and you can find bad if you look for it, and you can find good if you look for it.
Absolutely.
And now it sounds like you're choosing to look for the good.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing when you were saying it, it reminds me of the person that's out there right now listening to this that is struggling in their addictions, and they always say, well, I can't quit today. I can't go into treatment. I can't do this or I can't do that because I got a job, or I'll lose my wife, or I'll lose my husband, or my parents won't let me live here, or something, because they think that's the end. Like they're never going to get it back. But stories like yours, 7.5 years in institutions and rehabs, and twice overdosed in the hospital, almost dying a few times.
Yeah.
If that don't bring you hope, I don't know what will. But what they fail to see, because they're in their addiction, is that you'll be able to look back if you do it today. If you go in and get it started today, you'll look back a year from now and go, I didn't think I'd ever have this much in my life. I didn't think I'd ever have my kids back in my life. I didn't think I'd have my parents' love. I didn't think I'd have my husband or spouse. They always want to, when this happens, I'll get help.
Yeah.
If they oh man, if I could tell them, I'll start today.
I know.
You're worth it.
I know. I know, man. You know what? I've lived my life like that for so long, and it's like you said. It's like you really wish you could just grab someone and shake them and just be like, look, like you're worth it. Like, go get help.
Yeah.
Like, don't give up on yourself. Give yourself a chance, man. Like, this disease will take your life. One way or another, spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally. There's nothing good about it.
Yeah, I tell people, if yelling at the addict worked, there'd be no addicts.
Yeah.
It don't work. We got to love them, and we got to help them, and we got to let them know they're worth it. Addicts are so hard on themselves. We beat ourselves up so bad. We don't need to hear your stuff, because we're 20 times worse on ourselves. Whatever you got to say ain't going to hurt me.
Absolutely.
I'm already bad on myself, And so if we love them, let them know. There's a fine line of enabling and stuff like that. You got to keep boundaries with your addict, but letting them know they're loved and they're worth it. And even when they fight back, say, I'm not worth it. I'm going to, they throw their stick through the spokes of their bike going 50 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But they're in a struggle. And so if we can just sit back, not react, and love them and let them react and just not react back, you know? Because yelling doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, man.
Day, you got 1 minute, 20 seconds. Bring some hope. Some more hope, because you've brought a lot of hope even to me, man. That's amazing. What a story.
I know. I don't know, man. Just being clean and like being in recovery, it's such a beautiful thing, man. Like it enables me to be a better father. Like I never had a father, right? So like my biggest thing in life, like one of my goals, I used to write even when I was a child, was to like have a family and to like be a good father, right? And I still fall short some days, and that's
but like you said, you're looking back. You've got to look back and see how far you've come.
Absolutely.
Because I do the same thing. I get far ahead and I think, but if you'd have told me at the start of my addiction I'd have what I have today, I'd have said I'd want no more.
Yeah.
But now here I am today, and I want everything. I want more.
Yeah,
so
always want more, man.
Got to stay grounded.
And like if I could just say one thing is like, anybody that's listening that's struggling, like, please don't wait. Like, do what you need to do. Get help. Give yourself a chance, because you're worth it.
You are worth it, and there is hope. You're like me, Day. You're in the community. You see many people. They always say it's a small percentage that can make it in addiction recovery. Well, it's actually 100% if you get in with the right people and the right crowds and work the right programs, and they're out there. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you, and we'll be back on Monday. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Heston.